Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Jackson.
What's going on, guys?
It's weird not saying Rupert's name first, but he's not here tonight. Rupert is in San Francisco on a business trip with his work. That's fun to say. San Francisco. Shout out to all the Buddy the Elf fans in here. Anyway, I'm going to be there next week, actually. Rupert and I might be passing each other in the air on different airplanes because I'm flying in the day that he's flying out. We've got a family vacation there next week. So y'all will be holding down the fort without me next week. We held it down without you last week. Glad you're feeling better.
We're doing the rotations now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, all right. With Senior Bowl behind us, we are going to be getting back into our Inside the Prospect series. We never really stopped. We just covered Senior Bowl prospects last week. But yeah, we're back to the tight end position. Tonight, the man that we are highlighting is Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. Coming out of high school, Stowers was listed at 6'4", 235 pounds, which would be really light for a tight end. And he was the 12th ranked quarterback prospect in his recruiting class. You heard that right. He came into college as a quarterback, but he made the tight end switch after 2 seasons at Texas A&M. He transferred to New Mexico State in 2023 and then ultimately to Vanderbilt in 2024, where he finishes his college career. In 2025, the fifth-year senior caught 62 out of his 85 targets for 769 yards and 4 touchdowns. Great statistical season for a tight end. In fact, he won the John Mackey Award for the nation's best tight end. So very, very productive season for Stowers. And it's interesting because I would say in the fantasy Devy dynasty kind of realm, Stowers was considered the consensus top tight end prospect coming into the season. And even though he had a really good season and won the John Mackey Award, he's now been kind of passed up by Sadiq in terms of how he's thought of. So, but this is the guy that I would say in most people's minds seems like the consensus tight end too. So we're going to get into what we saw in film tonight and excited to dig into it. As we discuss the film, we're also going to be discussing some stats courtesy of PFF. So we're going to be looking at Stowers in comparison to all 79 FBS tight ends with at least 35 targets, regular and postseason. We get into it. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We each watch 5 games at least if we have it. 3 minimum, or we don't even assign grades, but usually it's 5+ games of all 22. That's, you can see all 22 players on the field. The person running the route never runs off the screen. So that's our process. We take detailed notes. We don't really compare our notes with each other until we get live on the show. We assign numerical grades for a number of different categories, which we'll be discussing on here. So we've got kind of a proprietary film grading system that we call our recliner rating. And all of that to just really try to see how is this person going to translate to dynasty fantasy football? Do we think, where would we draft them? Where do we expect them to get drafted in the NFL draft? All that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. Eli Stowers, elite season. What does he look like as an NFL prospect? We're going to start with release and route running. And I'll throw it to you first, Jackson. What did you notice from Stowers as a route runner?
This was by far his best trait for me. I gave him a 9 for route running. I was bouncing back and forth. 8 seemed too low. 9 maybe seemed a little high, but I think he's higher than an 8.5. So I ended up landing on 9. I thought he was really twitchy, especially at the stem of his route. There was one play that you're probably remembering versus Tennessee, I believe it was, where he ran this whip route and just absolutely torched the defender. Just really, really solid at the stem of his route, gets down, explodes out of his break, like almost looks like a wide receiver running routes. So I think as a route runner, he definitely excels. We're going to get to blocking in a little bit. I don't necessarily want him blocking. I want him out in the field running routes, and that's what he does just at a really excellent level. I also thought he had a really good understanding of zone coverage. One of the things we're going to mention, or I think you mentioned already, he was a converted quarterback, which I think helps him here, right? Because he understands zone, he understands how to move with his quarterback in open field really well. All that translates to this guy can run routes almost like a wide receiver and looks really good doing it.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add there. I mean, I made a number of notes on every game of his film, like, oh yeah, that was a really crisp route, very precise. He ran a full route tree to some interesting notes here. So from an alignment standpoint, he was primarily a big slot guy. So he ran, let me see if I can find it, 66% of his snaps in the slot, 8% out wide, and 25% in line. So 25% inline is pretty low for a tight end. If you don't know, inline means he's on the line of scrimmage, essentially right next to the offensive lineman, like he's at the end of the offensive line. Is where the name tight end comes from because they usually are tight on the end of the offensive line. But more and more in the modern day, you're seeing tight ends run out and play in the slot, and that is what Stowers did at a high rate. And this is why. It's because he's a really good route runner. He could run every route in the route tree. He could do it. He sunk his hips really, really well. Had some good snap at the stem of his routes. Really nuanced. Was able to kind of flip the hips of the defender and get open pretty consistently. So the numbers back that up. He had 2.55 yards per route run. That's top 3% in the entire FBS. That's a really, really good number for a tight end. He also was, let's see, 10th in the entire country in PFF grade versus man coverage, and 5th best in the entire country against zone coverage, with 76.5 for man and 79.5 against zone. He ranked one spot behind the guy that we're going to be talking about the bonus show against zone coverage. So, little spoiler alert there. We're going to be talking about Justin Jolie on our bonus show for members only. And if you want to catch our scouting report on him, be sure to check out our website. But yeah, really good. Man coverage, zone coverage, short, intermediate, a little bit deep. I wouldn't say he was like doing a ton of deep routes. But he had it in his bag for sure. There was one player where he's running down the seam and he kind of took one little nod step to the outside like he was running a corner, and then he jabbed back inside onto a post, and he just completely flipped the defensive back, got wide open. That's one of those plays, like you mentioned, where he really looked like a wide receiver running that route. So I had him at an 8.5 for route running. You said you gave him a 9, so we're not too far off there, and I could totally have seen myself going up to a 9. This was a real strength for him. So let's move on and let's get into the ball skills. So when we say ball skills, that's a general term that we use to encompass the ability to catch the football. So hands, how reliable are your hands? Contested catch ability to go up in traffic and win contested situations. The ability to track the ball down the field, maybe if it's thrown over your shoulder or not quite on your frame. Catch radius, like how wide is your catch radius? That has to do with height and arm length and vertical jump, but also like, can you go down and catch those low balls close to the ground? So a lot of different things that go into the ball skills discussion. And what did you notice here, Jackson?
Yeah, so this for me was just average, right? It wasn't poor, but it wasn't great either, in my opinion. I gave him a 6 for contested catch, 6 for catch radius, 7 for body control. I felt like I did see some plays where he reached back to the ball and kind of adjusted well on sidelines and while in midair. For me, catch radius was a real issue when I was watching him. It seemed like he let a lot of balls into his body. He didn't have this massive catch radius that you would expect for a tight end. And then for me, just the contested catch, he didn't seem great at this. For me, this was more of a physicality issue than it was anything. I gave him a 5 for physicality, and I might have even been able to go lower. That was one thing that we didn't talk about on the route running. I feel like, especially running routes at the catch point, like he got pushed around a little bit, and you can
Mhm.
understand he's a little bit of a tweener. He doesn't have a lot of weight on his body, so I can understand why the physicality would be an issue. But I feel like whenever a defender got his hands on him, he kind of knocked him off a little bit. He didn't seem strong at the catch point. He didn't extend to the ball the way I would have wanted him to. I did like his hands. I thought he had really solid hands. I gave him an 8 for that. When the ball did come to him, and he had some separation, like he was able to catch it, and he had reliable hands. It's just whenever there was a contested catch situation, or a situation for me where he had to extend, or have this huge catch radius to bring down the ball, like he just wasn't bringing those down at a high level for me.
Yeah, I had some of the same notes. One positive that I noticed for him that's kind of a negative on Diego Pavia. I swear every ball that was put on him was thrown behind him, and he had to reach back for it. And he did a good job adjusting back to balls that were thrown behind him. He was really good at that. So I had him a pretty good grade for ball tracking, and I think I had him at 8.5 for ball tracking and a 7.5 for body control. And a lot of it was because of those balls that were thrown behind him that he just did a really good job adjusting back to those. I agree with you. I think his hands were good. I had him at 7.5. The numbers back that up. He's got a 6% drop rate, which is not much. That's 4 drops, I think, total. On what was it, 80 something targets. So yeah, that's really reliable, good number. That's a top half number in the entire FBS. Where I thought he really struggled, I mean, 6.5 is what I put for catch radius. I don't think he is like the tallest or has the longest arms for a tight end. I mean, he would be big for a wide receiver, but for a tight end, um, I thought he had a pretty average catch radius. And then um, same note as you in terms of the contested situations. That's by far, I think, one of his weak points. I had him at a 6 for contested catch, which honestly feels generous. So if you're new to the show, 6 means NFL average. I'm sorry, we've been throwing out all these numbers, and somebody who's new is like, what do these mean? 6 is NFL average. 7 is good for an NFL player. 8 is like great even for an NFL player. So when we say we gave 8.5, 9 for route running, these are like really good scores. And 6 is not like, oh, he's terrible, he sucks. It's just, it's pretty average. I could have maybe even gone down to like a 5.5 or a 5 for contested catch. I had a specific note that I saw a defender get their hand in and break up a pass at the catch point numerous times. So he just wasn't using his frame
Yeah.
to like box the defender out, and kind of a lot of the tight end. It's like that classic, like, oh, he's a converted basketball player and he's boxing the guy out, and nobody had a chance at that ball except him. That wasn't really the case. He wasn't attacking the ball the way that you would necessarily want him to. And I had a 5 for physicality. So same note as you. I saw that show up in the route running. I saw that show up at the contested catch. I saw that show up in the blocking, which we're going to talk about later. So I don't think he's an overly strong physical player. You can kind of see the converted quarterback coming in there. It's like quarterbacks
Yeah.
don't usually like to stick their nose in there and get real physical with people. And he has put on weight from originally, that 235-pound frame that he came into college with. Let me see. I don't think he was at Senior Bowl or anything to have official measurements. No, Vanderbilt. I thought it was saying that he was listed at 235 coming out of high school, but no, he's listed at 235 by
235
Vanderbilt.
at
By
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's undersized. Um, I mean, we talked about Sadiq as a tweener because he was like 6'3" and 245. So he's 6'4", which is a little bit better in the height department, but he's 10 pounds lighter even than Sadiq, and he's taller. So he's just a skinny dude. Like, you really want 250 plus ideally for a tight end. So that's just not enough BMI for the tight end position, and it definitely showed up on tape. He struggled with physicality, and he struggled with blocking, which we'll talk more detail about the blocking later. But yeah, mixed bag with the ball skills. Like good hands, good body control, good ball tracking. Really struggled in the contested catches, and that shows up. He's 41% contested catch rate, which is a bottom half number in the FBS. Obviously, when I think of a contested catch, I think, okay, that's a 50-50 ball, and he's coming down with it at a 40% rate, which means he's losing 60% of his
Yeah.
50-50 balls.
Which for a tight end's not ideal.
No, no, not really, not what you want. So, um, before we move on to the second half of the show here, I do want to take a quick break to shout out CouchScouts.com. I personally have been putting in a lot of time and energy behind the scenes to completely revamp our website. And I think the feedback from our users has been overwhelmingly positive, but they haven't even seen everything that I've done yet. Even this week, like I completely revamped our dynasty rankings page. So if you're a member, go check that out. I think you'll be excited. We added market value in there that's sourced in from an algorithm of almost 6 million real trades that have happened, and it's updated daily. So anytime you get on there, you can see like real market value and then compare it against our dynasty ranks to see who we're higher on or who we're lower on. I'm completely revamping our all 22 film room on the site right now. The rookie guide this year got a complete makeover, and it's in a mobile web app, which is really slick, I think, and great, user friendly for our members. But it's not just cool. We've got some fancy custom coding on our website. I think the analysis is really good. We stand behind it. If you want to dominate your rookie draft, if you want to get that Bucky Irving in the third round, or get Cam Scadaboo in the second round of your draft, or just know, hey, I probably shouldn't draft Caleb Johnson in the first round, I would encourage you to stick with us. We'll steer you in the right direction. Check out CouchScouts.com. We do this really in-depth, detailed rookie guide, 60, 70 plus prospects when all is said and done, detailed scouting reports, rankings, the whole thing. It's the ultimate cheat sheet to dominating your rookie draft. And of course, we do the bonus podcast every week just for members. I mentioned we're doing Justin Jolie this week. So right now, we're still running promo code guide. I think by next week I'll have shut that down because it's been released for a few weeks now. But to celebrate the release of our 2026 rookie draft guide, we ran the promo code guide for 30% off your first year with us. So get in there, use that promo code. As of listening to this, if you're listening to it a week from now, it might not even be up on the site. So hurry, use that code, and join the Couch Scouts family. Now, with all that being said, let's get back into Eli Stowers, tight end, Vanderbilt, and let's get into some yards after the catch. So first job for a pass catcher is you got to run the route and get open. Very, very big check on that. Good job, Eli Stowers. Second job is you got to catch the ball. Mixed bag there, but a lot of good things. I would say he's got decent ball skills. Let's get into yards after catch because okay, once you catch the ball, what are you going to do with it? Can you get me extra yards after the catch? And a lot of tight ends, they're catching tight end screens or kind of shorter, closer to the sticks type of routes. So they have a lot of opportunity to get yak, and a lot of the best fantasy tight ends are really, really good yak threats. So what did you see here from Stowers?
Yeah, no, I saw good things after the catch for Stowers. For me, I gave him a 7, which is a little bit above NFL average. I thought that when he caught the ball, we always talk about, especially with these receivers, which tight end's going to qualify in that a little bit. For receivers, you want to see them catch the ball with a plan in mind. I feel like Eli Stowers did that. I thought one of the things that he really excels in is just that short area movement. We saw that in his route running. I think for me that popped up in your after the catch as well. There were several times where I saw him do really well in open space, force some missed tackles. And there were times where I saw him, follow his blocks well and create extra yards after the catch. I think a lot of those yards after the catch, maybe you may have noticed this a little bit too. He caught a few deep balls, and after you catch a deep ball and run it in 30, 40 yards for the touchdown, that counts as yards after the catch a little bit. So I feel like those numbers were maybe inflated a little bit. But I still feel like he did this at a nice rate. He's going to provide some value and get you some extra yardage. I think just because he has the body type he has the ability to sink his hips well and do really well in open space, and that benefits him in this area.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the same things, and I gave him a 7.5. I could have maybe gone down to 7 on that. My note on him was like solid, above average, not spectacular. So 7 feels appropriate, but I've got him at a 7.5. But anyway, he was all right. I didn't see anything special there, but like you said, he had a plan. He could make people miss at times. He forced 9 missed tackles in 2025, according to PFF, and he averaged 6.1 yards after the catch per attempt, which is pretty good. That's a pretty high number. So statistically, he did better there than even what I maybe would have thought just from looking at the film, but. Yeah, we got 2 more categories we need to talk through here. One is athleticism, speed, burst, quickness, and the other is blocking, which if we were doing a wide receiver, we wouldn't really talk about blocking much, but for a tight end, obviously that's a decent part of the job description, and so let me put it this way, the best fantasy tight ends are guys that are full-time players that are on the field 85+% of the snaps. There can be useful fantasy tight ends. I think of like an Evan Ingram type or others that aren't good blockers, that don't run that 85+% of the snaps, that have to come off the field situationally, that can still be useful for fantasy because when they are out there, they're out there to catch passes. But the truly elite ones, they're always out there, which means they can block. So that's why we talk about it. And I'll start with the athleticism, speed, burst, quickness. What did you notice there, Jackson?
Yeah, again, good scores, not anything that's elite. I felt like for his size, we talked about him being undersized a little bit. I would have liked him to be a little faster. There were times where I saw him get chased down a little bit by some linebackers where I feel like he maybe should have outrun them a little bit. But
Mhm.
again, I gave him good numbers. Like I gave him a 7 for game speed, 7 for burst. Again, not bad, but at the same time, not elite territory. He's good enough, I think, is what I walked away with the impression of. Like he's not going to blow by guys. He's not going to take the top off the defense, but he's going to have some downfield catches occasionally. So I mean, good scores, but I did notice some areas where he wasn't as fast as I feel like he maybe should have been with the body that he has.
I agree with you. I mean, not that he's unathletic at all. I mean, when we're giving sevens, that's like good athleticism for the tight end position, even for the NFL level. So I would say giving a 7 is a compliment. We're just not saying that it's like an elite, like it's this is a huge strength for him or anything. I had him a 7 for speed, 7 for burst, 7.5 for quickness. So again, some of that comes from being 235 pounds, but again, that ability to like really sink his hips, explode out of breaks, create separation at the stem of his route, occasionally make somebody miss after the catch. All that I think speaks to good quickness. I could almost even have gone up to an 8 for quickness, but 7 for speed and burst. I think of the tight ends that we've scouted so far, he's the least athletic one. And that's not a knock on him. I mean, Sadiq is a freak athlete. Joe Lee, we're going to talk about tonight, really good athlete. Trig, very flawed prospect, but really good athlete. So, um, yeah, I mean, he's not one of these guys. A lot of these tight ends, you're intrigued because they're such a size speed mismatch. They're like too fast for linebackers and too big for safeties. That's not Stowers. That's not how he wins. He wins again with technique and route
Yeah.
running. So again, to me, when I look at all this stuff, he's not profiling out as an elite prospect, and we'll talk about that. We'll wrap up with the blocking here. Actually, that leads me into the blocking pretty well because I didn't think he was very good in this area. I gave him a 5 for physicality. I gave him a 6 for blocking. So like, and that feels like it might have been a little bit generous. Now, according to PFF, he's got a 71.5 pass block grade, which is top 25% in the FBS. That's a good number. But his run block grade was a 51.2. That's a terrible grade. It's bottom third in the FBS. So maybe that's where I'm like getting the mixed vibes, because at times he looked really, really suspect, and then there were other times that he looked good. And maybe it was like, hey, in pass protection situations he holds up, but in run blocking he doesn't have the strength to push forward. Because I mean, pass blocking, you're kind of standing your ground.
Yeah.
Run blocking, you've got to push forward.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he has the strength to really push forward like that. So when you put his full profile together and you're like, okay, he's a lot of the elite tight ends are size speed freaks. He's not that. A lot of the elite tight ends are good enough blockers to be on the field for 85+% of the snaps. I don't think he's that. A lot of the elite tight ends are really good contested catch guys. I don't think he's that. But really reliable hands, really good route runner. There's a lot to like. Solid after the catch. I'm curious where he gets drafted, what kind of role and opportunity he ends up with. A guy from last year's class that he reminds me of a little bit is Oronde Gadsden. Gadsden was a little bit undersized, kind of a wide receiver tight end hybrid. And obviously he had some good moments this year as a rookie, but he was a 5th round pick. And yeah, so that's kind of an interesting comparison that came to mind for me. I mentioned the Evan Ingram. Ingram's faster than him for sure. But yeah, my overall grade on him is 69.65, which puts him just outside of like 70 to 75 would be in the range of a flex option. So he's just outside of that. He's ranked for me as a backup with starter upside. So that's lower than I was expecting to come out of this tape watch on him, like with just knowing that, okay, he won the John Mackey Award. He's a receiving tight end, which is what you want for fantasy. He put up big numbers. He's everybody's tight end too. I came away a little bit underwhelmed. So I want to throw it to you. I want to hear what you have to say about his blocking and then just your overall take on him as a prospect.
No, I agree with what you said at his blocking. I think you made an interesting point about the difference between pass block and run block. Because I totally agree. I think with run block, when you're having to push the guys forward, that's where he struggles with. I feel like strength is not necessarily there for him. I feel like he at times struggled to turn the defensive lineman to hold his blocks, to not only engage but to hold the block. So for me, that all translated to I gave him a 5 for blocking. So I was a little bit lower than average on that. I
You were
didn't
even a
think that
little lower than me. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
didn't
was
think
at
he did
6.
that. I didn't think he did that at an NFL average. I thought, based on what
That's
I saw,
fair.
he felt weak in this area. So for me, I mean, I'm not going to add really a whole lot to what you added. He does a lot of things well. He is the highest graded route runner that I've got in the class, and that's by a
Me
wide
too.
margin. That's
Yeah,
by a
me
wide
too.
margin. He's got tied for the best hands in the class. Um, and then I gave him, he's tied for ball tracking. He's got good quickness grades, yards after the catch. But I mean, he also has weaknesses too. He's not winning contested catches. He doesn't have a huge catch radius. He's not physical. I'm not sure he's going to be on the field for a large percentage of snaps. So for me, I've got him graded out at a 68.5, which is, a little lower than you, right outside that range of a flex option. It's a backup, a starter upside. I completely agree. I came away a little disappointed, honestly. You hear about this guy and you see him as like he's the tight end two in the class. We're going to get to this on the bonus pod a little bit, but I don't think he's the tight end two in the class. So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a
Spoiler alert.
it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I would take him pretty easily above Michael Trigg, even though they're similar in recliner rating for me. But yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about Jolie on the bonus show tonight. So CouchScouts.com, come join us and hear our full scouting report on Jolie. But yeah, I would take Jolie ahead of him pretty comfortably at this point. So I'm confident saying Stowers is not going to be my tight end 2 in the class. And we'll see if that, it's February. So right now, Stowers is the consensus tight end 2, and we're against consensus with that. But we'll see how it all shakes out when the process is done and combine and we get draft capital and all that. Maybe the consensus kind of flips around on that too. But for now, we're kind of going against the grain on that a little bit. But I feel comfortable with it. And yeah, we're gonna get ready to go record that Joe Lee podcast in just a second. But to close out here, I would say, one, if you're not already in our community Discord, join that. The link is free in our show notes. We just want to get to know the people that listen to our podcast. So we've shouted out the website a couple times, and we'd love for you to do that. But this is a free option to come be part of our community. And if you want some advice, you can post a trade or whatever, and we do our best to respond to as many of those as we can. But even when we can't get to it, there's like almost 300 guys in there, and people are pretty quick to respond. It's a really fun community. We just did Super Bowl squares. So shout out, Thomas. Thank you for running that game for us. But that was a fun thing. Everybody was chatting during the game, and a couple people won some free Couch Scouts merch from the squares contest, which was neat. So yeah, join that Discord. It's completely free. If you didn't know, we do have merch, so you can check out couchscouts.com/shop if you want to pick yourself up a Couch Scouts t-shirt or a hoodie like I've got on here, a hat. We got all kinds of stuff in there. But with all that being said, appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week. I believe we're doing running backs next week. I don't have that right in front of me, but I think maybe Emmett Johnson. Not positive. We'll see you next week. Have a blessed week. Peace.